Hello and welcome to the channel once again. I know some of you have been patiently waiting for this video. I finally received my Venturies in the mail from Borla, and today is going to be the day that I'm going to install this into my Borla Atak exhaust system of the E92 M3. The reason for the install is to try to reduce the drone that happens at around 3000 RPM. Will it make a difference, or will it just be a waste of time? If you're curious, please stay tuned. But before I get to the installation, I just want to take a moment and thank all of my subscribers. Thank you for subscribing, leaving comments, liking the videos. It really helps with the YouTube algorithms to help this small channel get discovered by new viewers. So without further delay, let's get right into the installation. First, we're going to be taking off the connecting pipes, which are right here. So we're going to loosen the bracket, take this apart, loosen these, and then take the connecting pipe out right here. And that's where the venturies are going to be. There are two brackets, 13 millimeters to take these off. And then the clamps that came with the Borla here they have 15 millimeter bolts. So I'm going to take those loose, and then I will also take some 4 bolts loose from the front that are also 13 millimeter, and those hold the brackets to the cans here up front. So we're going to loosen that so that I can separate this. So that's nice and loose there. Bracket. Should be loose enough. I'm gonna do the back one first. All right. And this one. All right, now we got all the brackets loose. Now we're going to move to this back and take off the brackets. So underneath the can here, or next to it rather, there's a rubber bracket holding all of this up. A bolt here and a bolt here on this side. So we're going to loosen those, and those are 13 millimeter, and then we're going to remove that on both sides. 13 millimeter. Now to the other side. Same thing, 2 bolts. Now, you will see a grounding strap. So I'm not sure if you can see that, but there is a grounding strap on one of the bolts, so be sure to put that back whenever you are reattaching the exhaust. So looking at the back, we'll have to possibly detach these at the back. We already have the bolts on the side hangers. We got the bracket completely loose, so that's probably going to drop here in a second. And then if we take a look at where we detached or loosened the brackets here, and there's 2 more hangers on both sides here, and I think this is also pretty difficult to try to pry loose, but hopefully we won't need to take all this off, but we just gotta get enough room to get some separation here to get this out. I forgot to say that you should loosen this bracket here. That's what I'm trying to do. Enough to where I can slip it over. So I'm gonna loosen it by hand here some more. There. So now I've got this loose. However, you can see it's separating. It's just like I need to be able to pull it down enough to clear. All right, so the right one here is loose. Driver's side is loose. Yeah, I think I have to take this off. All right, so we've got one side off, but I broke the rubber grommet. It was already kind of dry and brittle, so I'm gonna have to get a replacement. We have this loose now, and I want to take the connecting pipe off. Just gonna slip that out. There we go. So there's my connecting pipe, and that's where the Venturi is going to be welded into. I'm going to be installing the Venturis into the connecting pipes. So these two pieces are the connecting pipes that came with the Borla exhaust. The flanged end will mate up with the catalytic converter part, and this piece will then slide into the 2.5-inch exhaust of the Borla. So the way they measure exhaust tubing is they measure from the inside diameter of the exhaust. So the exhaust for the E92 M3 here is a 2.5-inch exhaust. So this being a connecting piece that slides inside, that means the inside of this is actually a little bit smaller than that if you take into account the thickness of the pipe. So that being said, originally we got our Venturis from Borla for free. They did send out a pair. Now the original pair they sent out here was the wrong size. So that was a mistake on their part. This is, I believe, I forgot what the size is, but its diameter is bigger than the tube. So you can actually sit on top here. That was not going to fit. So I reached out to Borla, and we figured out that the wrong set was mailed out, and I had to wait for the second set to arrive, which I have here now. So here's the other set. This is a Venturi for a 2.5-inch exhaust. So this it's very tight, and the reason it may not quite fit in there is that the exhaust piece is a little warped. I may have slightly bent it during tightening. So what you may or may not see, there it goes, it kind of slips in there, but at an angle. Anyway, once you get it started, you could hammer it in there, but it would be very tight. So I'm gonna have the exhaust welder actually grind this down just a little bit so that it'll move more freely, and maybe it will give them something for the welding to flow into, if that makes sense. So this is what the Venturi looks like from the side. So it just kind of reduces a little bit to a smaller inner diameter. And then of course here's our connecting pipe. So to give you an idea of how much room it'll occupy if once inserted and welded, and then it's going to end right where the flange expands here on the connecting pipe. The Venturi will be sitting like slightly where my fingernail is, like slightly here inside the lip, so that shouldn't interfere with the other pipe inserted into this flange. So you just want to make sure that you're not going to have any issues with that. I think it's just gonna fit just right. So I'm gonna take them actually to the shop right now to have them welded, and hopefully we can reassemble this sometime soon. What I'm also waiting on right now is some brackets. I actually goofed up and broke my 2 hangers. These are just some pieces left of it. The hangers that hold the exhaust in place. So when I took it off, I used the wrong tools. I was in a hurry, so I broke that. So I've got 2 new hangers coming. In the meantime, I ordered a new exhaust removal tool. This will help you not gum up and break your hangers. So you can use them to remove them, and I've heard that you can actually use the tool also to put them back on. And always use lubricant spray to aid in putting it on and aiding in removing. Because if you don't, it'll be very hard to remove and you're going to have to apply a lot more force. Now this rubber stuff kind of gets dry over time, and this just kind of ripped using a flathead screwdriver. So now let me take these Venturis to the exhaust shop and have them welded into the connecting pipes. All right, back again from the muffler shop. All right, so here are the 2 pieces welded together, or tack welded rather. We decided to just hammer the existing piece in there without doing any grinding so that it wouldn't take as long. So it's fairly tight. It's only got 4 tack welds to hold it in place. Since the pipe is tight on the other end, we did not choose to weld anything on that side. Also, we were trying to get the inside piece as close to the back end as possible so that we wouldn't be running into any issues on this side. Now the tack welds here are very close to where the other pipe might meet this connecting pipe, so I'm going to clean it up a little bit. We're going to be cleaning this up with the Dremel tool, these welds. And there's also a few little specks that I'm going to clean off on the flange and on the inside. Now, there is one area right here which it got burnt through. So if I can hold it just right, you can see it's kind of a little raised area there. And I'm going to be grinding that flush. And most other areas are, pretty flush. This has a little tiny dot there that needs to be ground off. The other ones you can kind of see where the heat just kind of came through, but it didn't add any bumps to it. So even if you do get it welded, they can either clean it up for you. In my case, I was very happy that I actually got this done for free, so I really appreciate that. Big shout out to Miller Muffler on Old Jacksboro Highway for doing this for free. And quickly. It took them about 5 minutes, hammered in there and tack welded. So I really appreciate that from a local vendor. So I'm just going to do a little bit of cleaning up, which I can do with my Dremel tool, and then these should be ready to be installed. And here we go. After polishing a little bit and grinding out some of the pieces that were sticking a little bit too far, Dremel did an okay job. There are some places where I wish I would have been able to grind off more. I guess with more time, I would have been able to do that. But yeah, the backside here, this is the spot that was bulging out the most. That is now no longer bulging out, so that's good. So yeah, I think this is now ready to install. However, before I can do that, I'm going to have to wait for my rubber brackets to arrive, and that, I don't know. I have no ETA. So, with the magic of the internet, I guess we will probably just continue on when I got my rubber hangers. Well, it's the day to put everything back together. We finally have our 2 connecting pipes with our venturies welded in. Excuse my thumb. Then we have the new rubber isolators that I'm going to be installing for the 2 that I messed up. And then some of the other tools I've been using here is a 13mm and a 15mm socket. Probably will need an extension for the getting at the bolts at the rear canister. Then you will need some white lithium grease for lubricating the isolators so that you can get those off more easily and without destroying them. I would recommend using some muffler pliers that will help you get those rubber isolators on and off much easier. And then finally, if you have it, use a torque wrench to torque everything down to the specs. And according to Borla, if I take a look at the instructions here, the instructions do have the torque specs. So the factory clamps need to be between 32 and 35 foot-pounds. And the other hardware is 18 to 22 foot-pounds. So I'll reiterate those torque specs when I get to the bolts. So let's get started. First, I need to get these broken isolators out of here, and then we'll go ahead and lube up the new ones with the lubricant and install those, as well as install our two connecting pipes. I'm going to go ahead and take my towel and spray these. Just inside the two holes. Spray the ones I'm taking off. I'm just about to remove this upper isolator. So the pliers work pretty well if you need to remove the bottom hole, but the top, there's not really enough room to do that. So if you have some regular pliers, it helps if you kind of put the pliers on the back side and just kind of push. But the hardest thing is just to get the isolator just over that kind of this groove, right? Once you're past this groove, it starts sliding much easier. So that's what I have on this one. I've got it past the groove, and now I'm just kind of wiggling it back and forth. And this is where the lubricant helps to get it off. So I'm just going to work it back and forth until it's off. And finally lube those brackets up here and the isolators. I'm going to get both the top and bottom. So before I put the isolators back on, I'm going to go ahead and put the connecting pipes in. Alright, so there's one. Let's go ahead and insert the other side too. Alright, now we need the new isolators. And I've already pre-sprayed all the holes. So I'm going to start with this one on this side. Now these are new, so they will probably be a little tight to get on. So top in first, so it's in. On the other side. Alright, that one's on. So we're taking off one of the bolts. Hopefully we can get enough of an angle to get the front started. We took the bolt off on the rear cans. Still hanging on one of the isolators, so hopefully we get enough play here. So we have to make sure that we can get this started, but also make sure this gets on here. All right, Alright, so I've got it. Let's move this bracket. Alright, so this is now started in the isolator. So now the isolator's on. Now we have some play here. So now we are just hanging on the isolators. There's nothing bolted on yet. I can either bolt it on like that, or I could move the isolator out depending on how much overhang we want to see at the back. So that gives us a little bit of freedom. So now I'm going to bolt the rear part on first, and then I'll tighten this front part. So here's the ground wire, which I'm going to attach to one of the bolts. So both of these are 13 millimeter. I'm not going to tighten this, I'm just going to get some of the looseness out of it. We'll torque that down properly in just a second. So coming back to this now, depending on how you want your rear pipes to stick out, you may be able to adjust here a little bit so that you can have your pipes stick out further, because you can then pull that out a little bit, or you can push it in and then pull it together more. Shall we do the other side before we tighten this up then?
Yeah.
All right. So we'll tighten the other side, or connect everything up on the other side, so that we can tighten this stuff up together, so we can kind of look at the back pipes, make sure that they're kind of sticking out about equal. So now we're going to take the bolt off the rear. So again, we're hanging on the front isolator now. And I'm going to try to twist it just a little bit to be able to start this. Apparently I don't have enough room here. Push this out just to... All right. All right. We'll just leave that there. Yeah, we got the ground wire here. So I'm just making it, not tightening it yet, just barely getting the looseness out. So we have there's 4 bolts in the rear cans. We've got those not tight, but it's holding the cans up. We've got the isolators on attached. We just don't have any of these right here tightened yet. So we can adjust these connecting pipes if we prefer to have the exhaust pipes stick out at the end just a little bit more. So Jessica's pulling the exhaust tips to try to equalize them at the front, and then I'll try to pull out the connecting pipes to fill the gap here, and then we'll tighten everything down.
Too far. Come on. I think the left one is good.
I just need the 15 millimeter socket. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten this up so that this doesn't slip in and out. And then we will tighten these up here around the connecting pipe last. This should already be loose enough, so I'm going to slip this over. As I'm tightening this, just want to make sure my bracket is straight. Alright, bracket around that, hand tighten this. Okay, these bolts on the original brackets are 15mm, and I'll have those facing downward. So as we adjust, you kind of want to just take a look at how far your tips are sticking out. And that's kind of just a preference. Just kind of look at it and see what you think. I think it looks fine.
Okay, then we're ready to torque.
Now we want to torque those properly. So now we have our torque wrench, and between, what is it? The factory
32 to 35 foot-pounds.
32 to 35 foot-pounds. And I'm gonna just torque them down to 33 first, and if everything is good, then I might go back and tighten them after I've driven it for a while to 35, but I think last time it was fine.
That's just for clamps.
So that's this clamp here, and that's a 13mm. There we go. I'll do the same for the other side. Alright, so those are now torqued. Next we'll torque these two clamps, which is a 15mm. So these also 32 to 35 foot-pounds. We're going to do 33 at first. Alright. Alright, extension 13mm, torque between 18 and 22 foot-pounds on the rear hardware. So we're going to be torquing it down to 20. Need to set my torque here.
Wheels off the ground, be careful.
Okay. Just getting everything out of the way, because now we're going to start the engine and check for exhaust leaks.
How are we doing that?
Probably gonna be using some soapy water and spray around the connecting pipes just to make sure there's nothing leaking. So after putting everything back together, it seems there were no exhaust leaks, so I took it for a test drive, and I took my decibel meter along, and I had captured some before and after video to see if I could actually find any noticeable difference. And turns out there's actually a small difference. So at 3,000 RPM is where the drone was the most prevalent. And driving around at cruising at 77, 78 miles per hour was where I was sitting, right about 3,000 RPM. And the decibel meter was reading around 77 to sometimes 80 decibels, depending on load on the engine. And that was before. After, I was getting, at the same speeds, same spot on the highway, I was getting about 75 to 76 decibels. So I would conservatively say I got a 2 to 3 decibel improvement, meaning it actually reduced the volume by 2 to 3 decibels. In some cases, it actually lowered it a little bit more. Sometimes I was seeing 4 to 5 decibels lower under load conditions. So I think, for my purposes, it has reduced it enough to be bearable. And so I would say it was definitely successful. So now that I know that there is a difference, stay tuned for next week's video because I'm going to make one about the decibel levels of the exhaust. We're just going to do some cold starts, some light revving, and some drive-bys and see if the sound has actually been affected or if it's even noticeable. So stay tuned for that one. Thanks for watching the video. Tune in next week for the follow-up and see you then. Bye.